Amphibia is a show that's been playing the long game from its very first episode, planting seeds over the course of those early episodes for the high-stakes epic it's evolved into. And without a doubt, one of the most exciting plot points that we're finally exploring is Anne's Calamity powers, which fully manifested in the Season 2 finale, True Colors. Anne tapped into a chilling yet familiar transformation that put her on equal footing with King Andrias, as she had a boost in strength, agility, speed, pretty much all the ideal RPG stats, alongside the emergence of new abilities exclusive to this transformation, such as flight, teleportation, and energy manipulation. As cool as this form may look, and as fun as it is for us to speculate on how Marcy and Sasha's own transformations may come to fruition, Amphibia is making it clear that Anne's Calamity powers are dangerous, not just for the poor sap who decides to run a fade with her, but for Anne's own well-being. She describes using these powers as bad in the Season 3 premiere, and wants to avoid using them at all cost, a last resort when all else fails. Of course, she's going to be forced to use these powers again, which means consequences are waiting around the corner. So let's examine Anne's Calamity powers so far, get to the bottom of what makes them so dangerous, and the route Amphibia may take with this story. I believe this transformation could cost Anne her arm, if not kill her. But will they go that far? After Marcy's fate, I wouldn't be surprised. And before we dive in, if you want to stay in the loop of all things Amphibia during our Season 3 coverage, then please subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. So what makes this form so dangerous, and why does Anne feel so bad using them? Well, let's start with the obvious observation: physical exhaustion. Tapping into these Calamity powers demands a lot from Anne. They take an immense toll on her body. This is evident from the fact that Anne can't sustain her transformation for long periods of time, immediately collapsing as soon as she withdraws the form. Heck, looking at the new normal, she didn't even completely transform into her neon blue state. No hair, no levitation, just the shift to glowing blue eyes and a fraction of the power she displayed before, zipping over to Silver Frobo and knocking the robot into next week. Though I would imagine the short rest time between uses only amplified the lack of control, or perhaps it was just distance from the blue stone. Afterwards, Anne couldn't even move her arms, which, although played as a joke, is the exact type of dialogue to have long-term repercussions in a show like this. Aside from being physically demanding, Anne's Calamity powers are also emotionally draining. She's never been in a good headspace when using these powers, but instead has been in an emotional distress. Considering that's how she's able to tap into these powers, I'd argue that's what these powers are fueled by. The blue gem represents heart, and as we see, its abilities activate within Anne when those she loves are in peril, those she holds close to her heart. But I believe these powers are running off Anne's toxic emotions, because it's those intense feelings that causes the Calamity powers to respond to her needs. And in this state, her behavior is far removed from the person we've become acquainted with. Don't get me wrong, Anne can get pissed off, but this is on an entirely different level. It felt like beyond combat, she wasn't even able to think straight in True Colors, just repeating, "Give him back." With those negative emotions amplified, it only makes sense she'd feel kinda crummy after the crash. I'd also like to mention the beautiful piece of music that plays during the birth of Super Anne in True Colors. Series creator Matt Brawley provided his own insight on this arrangement of No Big Deal, stating, "I swear you can hear her heart breaking. This is absolutely a warning song." This transformation was never one of triumph, but one of grief, the personification of Anne's fear over losing the honest and genuine connections she's formed in this life. Anne's dialogue about the Calamity powers feeling bad to use also got me thinking about potential inspirations for this transformation, as it's those inspirations that could give us a better idea of the direction this is all heading in. First off, we have one that's a little bit obscure, but I could definitely see influencing the creative process of Super Anne and her storyline, given Matt's love for this particular franchise. Well, a lot of people in the animation industry's love, if we're being real. And that's Supersonic. But not the typical collect all 7 emeralds and have a good time Supersonic that a bulk of video game fans are familiar with, but rather one that stems from the Fleetway Sonic the comic series. This Supersonic is a bit more maniacal, playing the role of an antagonist. And just listen to the description for him on the Sonic Wiki, you'll quickly pick up on how this could have inspired Super Anne. Supersonic is a psychotic demon-like entity who manifests himself in Sonic's body under conditions of extreme stress or exposure to chaos energy. Sonic frequently had to battle to keep his alter ego in check, because Supersonic's immense destructive powers, hyper-aggression, sadistic humor, and lack of restraint frequently endangered innocent civilians and even Sonic's own friends. Supersonic was created when Sonic absorbed a dose of evil energy that had been absorbed by the Chaos Emeralds. Aside from sadistic humor, at least at this point in time, a lot of those traits can be checked off boxes for Super Anne. Immense destructive powers, hyper-aggression, and lack of restraint all fit Super Anne to a T. Manifesting under extreme stress or exposure to chaos energy also applies to Super Ann, and even moments in the past where we speculated Ann could have been using her Calamity powers.
I'm more likely a stress-induced hallucination.
However, considering Supersonic ends up becoming a separate entity from Sonic entirely, I don't think Amphibia will draw any further inspiration from this particular source. But there is one other franchise that I think could give us a huge clue towards Super Ann and Ann's behavior going forward in the season. And that is, of course, the Dragon Ball franchise. Super Ann's appearance is of course very reminiscent of Super Saiyan Blue, one of the more modern transformations in Dragon Ball, but I feel as if the early portrayal of Super Saiyan and its evolution greatly mirror what we know about Ann's mysterious powers thus far. Before Super Saiyan became a basic technique many characters with Saiyan blood in their veins picked up as the series progressed, it was initially an impossible feat, a legend. Goku was only able to break through the barrier and become a Super Saiyan in response to his best friend being murdered before his very eyes, fueling Goku with pure rage. And once he achieved this state, he was no longer the optimistic shonen protagonist we grew to love. He was a ruthless warrior who wanted to avenge his friend at all cost. You know, just like what happened with Ann. Goku's normal behavior did resurface as he adjusted to the state, which is something I could also see happening with Ann's powers. But there's one particular storyline with the Super Saiyan transformation that I think Amphibia could really lean into. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan in the Cell games. I'm sorry for dropping so much video game, comic, and anime lore in a cartoon theory video, but I promise it'll all come together by the end. After witnessing the death of his friend at the hands of Cell, Gohan, Goku's son, became the first to ascend to the next stage of Super Saiyan due to the magnitude of his grief. And how this transformation influenced Gohan's behavior led to an intense, nail-biting section of the story. As with this newfound power, Gohan grew cocky, becoming extremely overconfident in his abilities, and prolonging putting an end to his battle with Cell, which ended up backfiring on Gohan as he lost his dad, inadvertently made Cell stronger, and broke his arm in the process. Broken arm. Interesting. Overconfidence and a cocky behavior is exactly the kind of thing I can see happening to Ann once she gains better control over these powers, with similar consequences awaiting her. Teamwork has always been a theme of Amphibia, but Ann could begin to feel as if she could handle these threats thrown their way on her own. Maybe she'll begin to act a little bit like a certain blondie she knows. The Planters have already called out that Ann has a lot on her plate, which she attempted to downplay.
You're sort of taking on a lot already.
What are you talking about? All I have to do is protect you guys and keep you a secret.
Oh, and find a way to reopen a portal to Amphibia and return you home.
Okay, it sounds like a lot.
But if things go smooth for a while, she may let it go to her head. But once she succumbs to these powers, one slip-up could cost her everything. So keep an eye out on any signs of Ann biting more than she can chew, and if she begins to rely on these powers rather than avoid using them. But all of that takes us to a bigger question. Why is it like this? Why are these powers innately toxic, and for lack of further information, evil? To be fair, they cover something called, well, the Calamity Box. Calamity is in the name, people. The power of these stones, the same power that's currently residing inside Ann, has been shown to display immense destructive power. And lest we forget, it's the influence of these stones that drove a wedge between Andrias' trio all of those years ago. Now you may be thinking, wouldn't that have been more to do with the 13-eyed freak being in Andrias' ear and influencing him to be evil? But I'm not sure on that, given that Lord of the Rings serves as one of Amphibia's influences. And I feel like the Calamity Box and its stones are akin to the ring, making the knight Amphibia's Sauron. So it's not unreasonable to assume that this trio, which more than likely already parallels the girls, had their own temptations with the box, motives yet to be revealed. Maybe Andrias' feelings towards the whole situation are a bit more complex than they currently seem. Don't get me wrong though, he's still evil. Our heroes may be better off pulling a Thanos and destroying the box alongside his 3 stones. But that sounds like grounds for another theory video. It's also worth mentioning that these powers aren't fit for human beings. They were meant for amphibians. There's a frog on the box for a reason. And we see that Ann displays some frog-like characteristics when in tune with her powers, such as hopping on her hands like a frog. So while physical exhaustion in the aftermath of a powerful state is a typical trope, I do believe the toll is magnified because of Ann's biology. Extreme usage of these powers, if not managed, could foresee extreme consequences, beyond limp noodle arms and breaking out the emergency durian. These powers are destroying Ann, and could result in her breaking a limb or two, or even result in death. Hey, we have a resurrection spell established in the lore thanks to the episode Maddie and Marcy, and I'm confident that's going to pop back up before the endgame. There's also a chance that this bad feeling from using the Calamity powers could tie into the tangled web that is Ann's friendships with the girls. Ann has heart, no doubt about that, but it may be in the wrong place. I believe the physical repercussions these powers have on Anne's body may be a result of her messy friendships because her powers draw from emotion, and she likely has mixed feelings about both of them that's been flowing through her for such a long time. Until she sorts things out, her transformation will continue to draw from negative emotions and react exclusively to dangerous situations. And while we're spitballing, the obstacles Anne faced with these powers could also be the result of the gem's partial recharge, or Sasha and Marcy's fresh lack of connection to the stones. Perhaps all three girls need to tap into their transformation simultaneously to maintain control, growing stronger, and preventing intense physical consequences. Three fires that burn brighter together. But going back to how these powers factor into the story, I'm sure they will reach a breaking point while Anne is still on Earth, before her return to Amphibia. Anne's parents now play integral roles in the story, which means their lives are in danger. If and when Andrias becomes aware of their existence, he may try to shift gears from trying to kill Anne to getting her to surrender with some radical bargaining power. And if Anne's parents are in peril alongside the Planter family, it could lead to a crazy situation where any of these characters kick the bucket. Hop hop. Should that happen, Anne's range of negative emotions would likely enable a full power transformation that'll end up consuming her whole and result in some sort of physical handicap. Again, Anne's already had her moment of arm shutting down at the end of the new normal, and her Calamity powers provide her with Flaming Fist of Fury. So while staying in the realms of a TVY7 Disney cartoon, I could see her sustaining intense burns and bruises, like Deku and Shigaraki from My Hero Academia. But yes, if they can get it past the S&P, Anne could lose an arm entirely, which I know has become a prominent theory amongst fans, alongside Sasha losing an eye. Anne almost lost her arm in toe tax. And there is a doodle of a severed arm, accompanied with Anne's name on it, in Sasha's Scare Dare notebook, from back in the episode The Sleepover to End All Sleepovers. Imagine, Anne loses an arm, Sasha loses an eye, and Marcy loses a leg? Marcy did break her leg when she first arrived in Amphibia, I'm just saying. Hey, if that's the case, their friendship may have a lot more in common than when they first came to Amphibia, am I right? Why are you throwing tomatoes? But as always, these are just my thoughts, and I want to hear yours. What do you think is going on with Anne's Calamity powers? Do you believe she could lose an arm? And are there any other anime, video gamey references that you think Amphibia could have drawn inspiration from? Now, don't get me wrong, this is just speculation. Any coincidences or similarities in other media to Amphibia does not mean it was 100% intentional, or that it impacts the story. Nevertheless, drop your comments down below, and you can keep the conversation going at Roundtable Vids and at Box on both Twitter and Instagram. Special thanks to JANKYBONES for creating an awesome thumbnail. As always, they knocked it out of the park, and they have commissions open for Halloween icons. You can find them on Twitter and Insta at BoneJanky, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, please sort of like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!